Okay, so let's just go through David's test here. Um, some interesting stuff. Um, might have to do this in two parts here. So, a couple little things I find interesting. So in Exert, we've got about a 291. Pretty sure Exert's 291. Pardon me, 294 threshold. And Exert. Just pop these up first so this makes a little bit of sense. And WKO4. Sorry, this always bugs me. Can't get to the bottom of my screen. So we got 274 here, WKO5. This is all current, so just keep that in mind. So think 275 from one and 294 from the other. If we look at the fact test, you'll see there's a pretty, I say pretty clear. There's a pretty clear LT1 here at 140 and 225 watts. There's, you know, we can get into a discussion like, is this LT2 deflection? It's becoming less clear, which you sort of see in Matuz's test now too. And I don't really have an answer per se or a reason, but what I see, I'll just say what I see all the time, is that we usually can find an LT1. This is pretty obvious. We know we can find balance point, and the better your aerobic system gets, the more we move LT1 and balance point up, especially up into this near threshold area, which David's now approaching. There really isn't a great LT2 deflection. So interesting thing here is if I pick my best correlation line of best fit here, you'll see that at 275 we get into this reverse deflection area, which you've heard me talk about before as a possible muscular limitation or weakness or fatigue. There's something else kind of neat that we see here. You'll look at the lactate curve is really kind of increasing in a normal fashion, but this last one kind of falls off like you'd expect. You know, technically we'd expect this to keep rising and maybe be upwards of somewhere here in the 17 range. So not much of a difference, but just this fall off in lactate is interesting. So is it fuel? Like, are you running out a little gas at the end and not able to provide the energy to push the lactate? Maybe. I'd love to see another step test. Yeah, I know, fun, right? Another step test up to 375, because I'd like to see if, you know, you repeat this a week later, maybe with a different type of training the day before. Do we see a continued straight line in the upper linear limit move up? Because, you know, these 2 points, yeah, it's either a muscular limitation or a little bit flat maybe from not enough training before the test. I'm not sure really what you did leading up. So just some interesting thoughts. So we've got the points falling off the line of best fit at 275, which matches WKO5. And then we honestly don't have a deflection point to look at LT2 in my opinion. So balance point here, just quickly bring up a spreadsheet with some points. So if we just look at some numbers, so you had very similar from March, July, similar balance point, watts per kilo. So the numbers went down a little bit on the balance point, but you lost some weight there. So the watts per kilo stays about the same. Obviously, it would have been wicked to see that this go up. So keep the 254 and have that go up. But it is what it is. That's what happened. So you're down like whatever, 0.3% since March. Then if we look at December, 154 beats. So this is all pretty steady, and that's normal. It shouldn't really change that much at your age. But the wattage is up to 264 now. And so we get like 3.09. So we're up about 4.4% since July. So that's awesome. What if you had kept this 254 here? What would have happened? So if we had kept 254 and in July, I changed all the weights so they were accurate. So in July, 84, so equals this divided by 84. So yeah, even if you had maintained the wattage and lost some weight in July, would have been at 3.02, still would have been up another 2.2% now. But the reality is there was different than that. So that's back to proper there. So yeah, nice little 4.4% increase in the balance point, watts per kilo. Nice solid number bumping up on the actual balance point. A couple little things. Don't want to get in this too deep here, but had a quick look through progression. So if we go to signatures, well, I'm going to have to check. I won't get into that. This looks pretty noisy. Hold on. I won't change this because it'll change it on your side, but I just want to check one thing. Interesting. Okay. So a couple of neat things. The balance point's coming up, and if you look at your threshold progression, it looks nice. I kind of like it over here a bit better. Let's just go a year. So, you see rise and fall. This is pretty, what I kind of like to see where the threshold, if you draw a straight line on here, it's kind of slowly moving upwards. So that's really great. So you've got a threshold that's slowly creeping up over time. So that's awesome. And you can always start to see where your progression is headed if you carry on doing what you're doing, right? So if you took a ruler on here and drew this over, then you can kind of project it into the future and see maybe how long it's going to take to get to like 320 or 325 or 330. So good job there. The other thing that is nice is if we look at on the signatures, you're keeping this threshold and your balance point's coming up, and you're doing that with a reasonably high HIE, so that's great. So no complaints there. Good for you. Everything looks great. Let's go back to here for a sec. So that's July. I want to get December first. Okay, so with December, we talked about this reverse deflection. I'd love you to do another step test, exactly the same. Do it to 375 watts. Let's see if there's a little bit of a different heart rate response up in that top end, or if it's real, because that's kind of gonna affect my answer. Once again, this is a really good sign here, right? Remember, we've talked about looking at balance points before in other people, and in you in March. Right after balance point, we see this kind of quick inflection, right? A quick jump up in the lactate. So it's like, yeah, this is going to take a while to get shallow and be able to move that balance point to the right again. If we take a look at July, it's starting to shallow. Now we don't have one after that, but it doesn't really matter. The one right after balance point you see is less. It's coming smoother at the bottom compared to that March test. And we see the same thing here in December, where it's actually almost the same. So this could be, we're talking 0.1. I mean, that could be a machine error. So I do like to take things on face value and say, okay, it's 6.1, lactate goes up. Yes, it's only 0.1, could be machine error. But I would always err on the side of caution here and say, your balance point is 264. So we're going to take this lower one, but the nice thing is this is trending towards moving that balance point up a little higher again, which should be awesome. You know, if I spin these around a bit and take that as 6.2 and 6.1, so I'm going to change this around just to show you a bit of a difference. So now we get into a situation where balance point's like 279. So that's amazing. Right, so that's a big difference in moving it over one more level. So way to go. But once again, I'd still take this lower value. So I'm just going to change that back so I don't forget. But it's heading the right direction. It looks like you're going to make that move again and again soon. So this is awesome. I'd like to see another test. It'll either solidify what I'm thinking or sort of change what suggestions I might make. So I won't go on too much about training just yet. So great job on the balance point. Let's just take a quick look at the recovery lines, and we'll start in March again. So March, you'll notice as you get past balance point, you're at least headed. You never get back on the line. I think everyone knows what I mean now, but these recovery wattages come from the wattages after. They create this green line part of the graph, and I like to see it getting closer and closer to the optimal first part of the step test. So this is our bit of a picture that, you know, technically you're back on by 300, even though you didn't go that hard, but the projection is there. So, you know, March, you're looking at back on by 300. July, not quite back on, but overall closer. If you just think visually, this is a little bit closer than you were in the previous one. Now, if we go back and look at December, it's kind of a bit further away again, and I think that's tied into here. So, yeah, let's do another step test within the next 7 to 10 days. That'd be amazing. Let's just look at some lactate curves. The better your aerobic system gets, the less exciting these get. I just, you know me, I really like seeing that balance point move up. It's awesome. So let's go March, do all 3 of these. It'll get pretty funky, but let's do it anyway. I should do the right ones. So we'll lactate March, July, December. Okay, so you're trending down, like you kind of noticed that yourself, right? So March, it was once you got above 200 watts, lactate really started creeping up quickly. You can see your picture, the overall trend of your lactate kind of looks the same. These peak lactates are coming down. Now that's normal to see these come down as balance point goes up and the aerobic system gets better. In a perfect world, we'd love to see this get a little flatter, right? So we need to now have maybe a bit of a discussion on your balance point's really good, but your LT1's still like sitting around 225. So now the question is like, do we try to move that LT1 up and see if we can keep balance point up in the 255 to 265 range? So that's a possibility once we find out about the top end of this test. So you've got, the heart rate response here is very similar to March. The lactate general curve is getting lower. The max lactate is still pretty high because, like I said, we want to move the balance point up. We want to flatten this curve down here, but we don't want to lose this ability to produce lactate at the top, right? This is an energy system. So if it's why, you see let's say an ultramarathoner with like a 6 or like a 5 or 6 or 7 millimole max up here, well, there might be that might be a sign to actually maybe give a bit of intensity, because once you're too dominant in one area of the lactate curve down here or in the middle or up top, then you are missing some energy that you do need. And you do a variety of sports, right? You do time trialing, steady state, you do some crits, you've got these different things you want to try. So the broad spectrum of lactate is going to be important. If you only had 6 millimoles down here, then you're probably not going to have much ability to have a top end. So even the lactate curves are trending the right way. But like I said, that balance point's looking nice at 264, whatever it is, and looking like it's going to edge over a little bit to the right again. So that's awesome. I think that's it for now. I I find this discrepancy in WKO5 as well as that deflection and thing I pointed out earlier. That's pretty interesting. So we can maybe get a little bit to the bottom of that with another test. So that's it for now. I'll put a few things up on the forum as well and a little bit of homework, and then we'll try to see what the next steps are for you over the next 4 to 7 days, depending on when you can get that test done.